Hi everyone. Welcome to Leisrealtalk. Happy Tuesday. All right, it's another week. Wow, let's talk about China's economy. I haven't talked about economy for a while. So, uh, you know, I have been actually preparing for this script for quite a while. Um, I think Xi Jinping forgot about China's economy until recently, and he made quite a number of moves. And I'll present them all to you, and you can decide if he's really rescuing China's economy or preparing for war. Um, so the first thing he did, I'm sure you have already heard about this, was his visit to China's central bank with his vice premier He Lifeng. It was on October the 24th, right? They visited the Bank of China and also the State Administration of Foreign Exchange. And according to public records, she had never been um, to the central bank. In fact, no CCP leaders before him or no CCP leaders had ever visited the central bank. And visiting the central bank had been the job of the premier or the vice premier. Bloomberg said that part of the purpose of Xi's visit to the Foreign Exchange Bureau was to find out the status of China's $3 trillion worth of foreign exchange reserves. So that's one unusual event, right? And then on October 30th to the 31st, he held the Central Financial Work Meeting with all six other Politburo Standing Committee members. Now, this conference, this central financial conference used to be called National Financial Conference, and it's to be held every 5 years. They didn't hold one in 2022, so they had it this year. And in the previous meetings, not all Politburo Standing Committee members attended. For example, in the 2017 meeting, only 5 of the 7 members were in attendance. So this year, he changed the name, and all 7 members showed up. So by calling it a central conference instead of a national conference, he emphasized the party's role in managing financial matters. He's reiterating the party's leadership role, or the central leadership role, excuse me, over financial matters. Now, this meeting didn't come up with any specific policies to save or to revive the financial markets, but was more like a show of force event to remind everyone that the party leadership, which is him, has the ultimate control over the financial industry. So these two recent events, one happened on October 24th and the other on October 30th. People say Xi Jinping was trying to send a message, and the message is loud and clear. That is, he is in control of the financial matter in China. However, there's one person who believes that he's preparing for war, and that person is Yuan Hongbin. I have presented him many times to you. He is a dissident now living in Australia. He was when he was a professor teaching at Beijing University, he was a drinking buddy with Xi Jinping for 8 months. And he is a person who holds the view that all of these events indicate that Xi Jinping is preparing for war. And so this is what he said. He said, there's only one reason why Xi Jinping wants to centralize power in the financial fields. He is bringing China into a full state of war. Xi's fundamental purpose is so that once he launches a war in the Taiwan Strait and is subject to international sanctions, he will be prepared to have highly centralized energy or inertia to fight against the sanctions. In addition, with a highly centralized financial system, it will be easier for him to implement wartime rationing. And all he's doing now is preparing for war. So that's what he said. So in his view, in Yuan Hongbing's view, the final collapse of CCP's rule over China is a looming event. It is forcing Xi Jinping to take a gamble by launching a war to export crisis. And Xi is trying to solve all the political and economic problems he now faces in one fell swoop. I cannot say I agree with Mr. Yuan 100%, but it's hard to discredit what he just said. I will present you a few other things that Xi Jinping is implementing, or a few other economic policies that he is implementing that seem to support Mr. Yuan's claim. So now let's first talk about the real estate reform. By the way, I don't have any slides for you because I don't know if any visual effect would would add to this talk. So I'll just talk through this. The first is a real estate reform. Now, from the 1980s to the 1990s, China went through four housing reforms. The first ended social welfare housing, like public housing. Like everyone in China lived in public housing. So they ended that. And then they had a dual track housing system. And then they eventually have like a free, quote unquote, free real estate market. And they introduced concepts like mortgage, down payment mortgage and all of that. So it went through from the 1980s to the 1990s. And that has been, and then after 1980, I think the last reform was 1998. So the real estate market has been what it is since 1998. But this new reform will set China back to the pre-1998 era with a dual track system. So what does the dual track system mean? Well, one track is the public housing system. It is government subsidized welfare housing for low-income people or people who cannot afford to buy a home. Prices and sales channels are regulated. So land concession costs, which make up 50% of China's real estate prices, will be significantly cut and regulated. And then profits and sales channels will also be regulated. So if you look at the land concession cost, which is the money the local government gets from selling land to the real estate developers, which make up 50% of the real estate, the housing prices, that would be cut significantly. So this is where the government will be able to cut the price. So that's track number one. And then track number two is the commercial housing market, in which people with money can still buy and sell, buy whatever they want. So that's, that's the commercial market. So it's dual track. This reform, it's called a reform pilot program, will be rolled out in 35 cities that have population greater than 3 million. So even though it's called a pilot, it's essentially a national program because it's going to be implemented across China, right? These 35 cities will be all of China's major cities, first tier, second tier, third tier. So 3 million is not like mid-sized Chinese cities. And the new policy targets, it has a goal. The goal is to have a 60-40% split between the public and private housing, meaning that 60% will be 60% of the housing will be public and 40% will be the commercial. So the bulk of the housing units will be in the public sector. And this model is copied after Singapore's housing model, which has 80% of its housing subsidized by the government. However, the Singapore's situation is quite different from that of China. First of all, excuse me. First of all, Singapore is very small, right? With an area that's about 733 square kilometers, which is about a third of the size of Shenzhen. And public resources and income are relatively evenly distributed in Singapore. And its strategic geographical location and robust financial industry, and also its advanced manufacturing, make the city-state affluent. So its government has the financial means to roll out a robust housing subsidy program. But China's various regions, China is in a different scenario, right? It has a very wide financial disparities across various regions. And also the double track systems that China has experienced in the past never worked. Like the double pricing system for raw materials in the 1980s directly resulted in the 1989 student protests, because the economy was seriously affected by high inflation and also corruption. The CCP princelings were privileged people, and so they can enjoy the better price. So they buy raw materials in the state system at a lower price and resell them in the other track, in the free market, quote unquote free market, purely for profit. And because they have privilege, they're able to do that, and people were fed up with that. So that directly led to the 1989 student protests. All right, so this model will create several core issues that will be difficult to solve. First, it doesn't solve the local government financing issues. As you know, one of the key financial pillars of local government is land concession revenues. So this model, will still leave the local government seriously in red, because they will still lose the land concession revenues. And the second problem is it doesn't solve the oversupply real estate problem. The government said that it will convert some of the ongoing projects from the developers into state housing, and they will also build some new ones. But this will not prevent real estate developers from going bankrupt, because the fundamental problem is oversupply and small demand. Whatever remaining demand in China, if you look at the people that are in need of a real estate, are the people who don't have the money, right? But it's a very small. The people who are able to afford a home but don't have the money, who live in urban China, is a small number of people. Is not a large, is not a large group of people. A lot of them are young people. So and this demand, the real estate developers, basically what the government is doing now is like taking over this leftover demand and put them in public housing. So there's really no demand left for the commercial track, right? So everyone who can afford a home or can afford multiple homes already have one. So that means, the public track will do very well, but the commercial track will be left with no demand at all, because whatever demand is left will be taken over by the public track. And then the third problem is it will cause market chaos, because people don't know how this would impact their real estate prices. A lot of the urban buyers, they buy real estate because of good school district, right? Like they will consider the prices of real estate fluctuate, depends on the school district, the quality of the school district. And so how the government will map public housing with school districts will affect real estate prices, and it could cause confusion. So if a public housing project falls in a good school district, its prices may be higher than a commercial project, you know, that's outside of the school district. So it will cause some chaos, and so it's still too early to say how this policy will impact the market. But one thing for sure that I could say is this policy will allow the government to control people's life. If you live in a government housing, if you live in a government-owned subsidized home, you won't move to another home or in another city easily. Think about it. You will have to go through another application process to be approved. So if 60% of the Chinese population all live in public housing like that, that means these 60% won't go against the government, because if they do, they will lose their home. And these people probably won't switch jobs easily, because, if they do, they will probably have to, restart the application process again to get a new home. So that will effectively help the regime to control people if a war breaks out, if you really think about it, right? All right, so now let's talk about the second. So that's one economic policy that has been recently announced that will have a significant impact on Chinese economy, on Chinese people. But many people believe that it also will give the CCP a much easier way to control the people in time of war. Okay, the second thing I want to talk about is the use of spy agency for building the economy. In my last week's live stream, I think it was on October 31st, I talked about how Xi Jinping is relying on China's Ministry of Public Security to carry out its anti-corruption investigation and some of other functions. Like one example I gave was Chen Wenqing, the head of CCP's political and law apparatus and the former head of MSS, Ministry of State Security. He's now in charge of the tax and land use probe into Foxconn in China. Foxconn is the Taiwanese company that's also Taiwan's largest supplier in China. And its founder is running for president in Taiwan. So in that program, I said, why would the spy chief or a former spy chief be put in charge of a financial, economic or financial investigation, right? Tax investigation, land use investigation. That just doesn't make sense. Well, let's talk about what this agency does. The State Security Ministry is CCP's intelligence agency that's equivalent to the CIA. Like the CIA, the MSS is responsible for intelligence and counterintelligence work involving foreign countries. So unlike FBI, which handles domestic work, CIA is international. Same with MSS. Its equivalent is CIA. It was formed in 1983 by Beijing by consolidating several intelligence functions or departments within different ministries. So they moved these intelligence functions from various organizations and created this MSS. It's a mysterious organization that doesn't talk about itself, given the nature of its work. And it's the only ministry that doesn't have a website, nor does it issue any statements. It only has, for public to access it, it has like a tip-off hotline for people to call. However, on July 31st, the ministry opened its first Weibo account. Weibo is like the Chinese version of X, Twitter. And so on July 31st, it opened its first social media account and made a post about mobilizing the entire society to catch spies. Remember in July, China promoted this um, what do you call that? Anti-espionage law that was passed, that was enacted on July 1st. So that was its first post on social media. And then on November 2nd, after Xi Jinping attended the Central Financial Work Conference and emphasized the importance of financial security as part of national security, the Ministry of State Security issued a rare statement titled, "Be a Resolute Guardian of Financial Security." I have links of those articles. Almost all major Chinese media outlets, reported that. So I'll provide you with a link. I mean, it's in Chinese after this talk. So the post said, some ill-intentioned individuals are trying to use finance to cause troubles and profit from chaos. They are the short sellers trying to cause financial turmoil in our country by destroying international community's confidence in investing in China. They have brought new challenges to us in maintaining our state financial security. Something like that. That's not the entire post. It's just one section of it. And people find it odd that a low-key spy agency is now going overdrive in broadcasting its determination to safeguard national financial security. So from this, we can tell that one, what Xi Jinping is preparing is not a normal economic crisis, right? Obviously, it's not a normal economic crisis. What he's planning for is a major geopolitical and economic crisis that would require the use of his intelligence organization. Now, the MSS is not only involved in just economic affairs, it's also involved in foreign affairs. On September 4th, it published a second post discussing, so July 31st was its first post. The September 4th was the second post. And then November 2nd, the one I mentioned that I read you, was the third post. So the second post was about Sino-US relations. It has a very strong tone that accused Joe Biden of being two-faced when handling China. The MSS post warned the United States that if the Biden administration doesn't show enough sincerity, then the Biden-Xi meeting in San Francisco at APEC would not happen. So it's very unusual, again, for a spy agency to be commenting on foreign affairs and Sino-US relations. Would the CIA be commenting on Sino-US relations? I don't think so. So it's very absurd. So what Mr. Yuan said about Xi Jinping preparing for war seems to explain why he now relies on intelligence to run economic and diplomatic affairs, right? Because in his mind, a stealth war has already started. And economically and also diplomatically, a stealth war has already started economically and diplomatically, and the spy agency plays a very important role in that war. And so that explains Mr. Yuan's theory that he's preparing for war. And I'm saying that, another type of war has already started. So that's the second event, shall we say, that makes me think um, Mr. Yuan's claim, uh, should not be quickly dismissed. All right. Now, third event. Now, this is not factual. This is just based on a statement someone made. Wang Juntao, a Chinese dissident living in the U.S., who went to college with the deceased premier Li Keqiang. I quoted him. I quoted him last week when I talked about how Li Keqiang died or might have died. I talked about him. I showed you his picture. He said on November 2nd in a media interview that retired CCP elders are not having a good time. And they're under surveillance and don't have the chance to get together. They need approval from Xi Jinping before they want to meet a certain people or a certain person. One also reviewed that the CCP elders and their families have been ordered to hand over a portion of their wealth to help China's economic difficulties in exchange for not being investigated. Former Premier Wen Jiabao and the leader of the Jiang Zemin faction, Zheng Qinghong, have all turned in part of their family's wealth to the state to get out of trouble. That's according to Mr. Wang. There are only two families that haven't turned in their assets. One is Hu Jintao and the other is Jiang Zemin. Now, I think Xi Jinping will come after them sooner or later. I think he's waiting for the right time. It's because Jiang Zemin's family just has so much money. They're the wealthy. They have the most money. So it's hard for him not to go after them. And I think for Hu Jintao, I think it's at a very sensitive time. Li Keqiang just died. And if he goes after the Hu family, it's going to cause backfire. So, and also the Hu family probably doesn't have as much money. So he's waiting on that. But this is very odd. Xi Jinping already have enough enemies internally within the CCP. Why does he want to create more enemies? Right? It seems unnecessary. Anyone who seriously wants to bring the economy back in a normal fashion, right, through some kind of stimulus program or through some good policies, like wouldn't want to you know how CCP leaders are always the biggest fear is internal political struggle. So why would he want to do this when at the time when he already has enough enemies? But that thinking is in peacetime, right? In wartime, it's a different story, because if he is about to start a war, he won't be afraid of upsetting anyone if he knows that he will soon kick off a wartime mechanism, a wartime control mechanism to control the entire society, including all of them, right? So I just found it extraordinary. If what Mr. Wang said is true, I found it extraordinary. If you understand how ugly CCP's politics can be, then you wonder why does he do that? I mean, he would do that to those who he has, evidence against, say, oh, your family or your kids, you know, but then just have a blanket rule, a blanket rule to ask everyone, hey, you need to donate a portion of your wealth to my national stability fund or to my war against Taiwan fund. I don't think he will say, oh, I need the money to start a war in Taiwan. I think he's going to say, I need some money for the national stability fund. It's it's going to upset a lot of people. Chinese people care. I mean, these CCP leaders care most about money, because part of the deals they made with each other was that if their family or their children are not given power or authorities within the government or within the party, then they should have the privilege to make money, right? So this is kind of the unspoken rule. Okay, so if I have no power, if my people or my children are not involved in politics anymore, then at least, let us make money, give us the privilege to make money. And if he's saying, no, I'm not letting you make money, I'm taking money away from you, and I'm also um, getting rid of anyone who don't belong to, who doesn't belong to my faction, he knows he's going to upset everyone, but why does he still do that? So the only explanation is he doesn't care, because he has a way to keep everyone under control, and I think that has to do with a wartime mechanism. So the real estate reforms, the MSS being involved in economic affairs, and the forcing other CCP leaders and their families to donate money are all part of Xi Jinping's economic blueprint for China for the near future. But are you convinced they are driven by his ambition to take over Taiwan, or they are just his poor, they're just his poorly designed economic policies trying to revive the economy? Uh, are you convinced what the motivation is behind that? For me, it's really hard to say. Uh, I think the claim that this is all motivated by his ambition to take over Taiwan cannot be discredited. That's all I can say. It's I mean, the circumstances are compelling enough for me to make this video. Cannot be discredited, and it cannot be disregarded. That's all I want to say. Let me know what you think. Okay, that's all. All right, let me see. Um, Vicky Lewis, happy birthday. The candle spinner on your fruitcake was wonderful. You're blessed to receive so many cakes. Yes, I didn't eat all the cakes in one day. They span across, I think, 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks. So yeah, the one that cake also sings. I mean, it sings. It has a musical. It has a battery. It has a. It's like a music box. It was quite phenomenal. All right. All right. Good. All right. Let me see if people have questions. Thank you. Thank you guys for all the birthday wishes. All right. She economics. All right. Oh my goodness. All the birthday wishes. Thank you. Thank you. All right. If you have questions, you could put my name in the front, and so I know it's addressed to me. Naveen Bhatia, Lei, what's China's real GDP? $18 trillion or between 12 to 13? I think 12 to 13 is still an overstatement. I did a program. I estimated that China's GDP is either close to what Japan's was, which is what, under $4 trillion, or it's between I think 6 and 7, between 6 and 8 trillion, based on two methodologies I used. And I think, yeah, between 4 to 8, I think, is my estimate. It's not over 10 trillion. It's not over 10 trillion for sure. Um, all right. Okay. Wow. Happy birthday. Are these facts about Chinese debt true? LGFV debt's 9 trillion, BRI 1 trillion, real estate 3 trillion, the debts. The BRI is 1 trillion. Okay, I will talk about China's foreign reserves. I was going to talk about China's the shadow reserves. Remember back in the summer, people were talking about China has an extra 3 trillion foreign reserves, shadow reserves somewhere. I was going to talk about that, but I'm going to save that for Thursday. So stay tuned for Thursday. That should be a very interesting talk. And your question is related to that. BRI's 1 trillion. Um, so stay tuned. All right, let's see. Mitsu, thank you for mentioning the big cost of Tiananmen Square. I read the Gao book on this and how the cadre hoarding and price gorging on TVs and radios. Yeah, they were hoarding all kinds of, like rare like everything was rationed, rationed. I don't know, rationing, ration. I don't know. Okay, tell me how to pronounce that word. You say it's rationed, but it's rationing. Okay. I'm so confused. Anyways, yeah, TVs, even bicycles, like those were considered luxury items back then. So they have two prices, in the state controlled track, you buy them at, let's say, 100 yuan, and then you could sell them for like 200 yuan in the other market. So anyone who have access to the state quota, if you get state quota to buy these things, then you can make a lot of money. And that's what happened. All right. Let's see. Okay. Okay, there aren't that many questions addressed to me, which is good. Oh, here's one. Suminan. Thank you, Lei. Lei will answer. Oh, that's a comment. Well, thank you, Suminan, for getting people organized. It's Mark Pollard. Happy birthday. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Sorry to hear such a sad live stream about war surrounding it. What do you think happens to the world economy if that war is launched? Thanks. Oh, that doesn't. I think our economy will backtrack for at least 10 years, maybe 20 years. I think China's economy will go back to the pre WTO years. So it will go back to what, the year 2000? Um, and because of that, the US economy and the rest of the world will also be affected because the world economies are so closely intertwined. So we can go back. And also, I think in terms of technology, we will also go back. Because the war, when CCP launches an attack, it will probably different from what we are thinking. I think they will launch an internet war. A lot of it will happen online. So I think the internet will automatically, that's just my view, I think the internet will become several big intranet, you know, um, it will not be the same internet as before because countries to protect themselves have to do that. So a lot of that will happen on the internet. So technology wise, we will also go back 10 to 20 years. Um, who knows? We may go back to analog times, because I don't think the CCP will launch a conventional war where they will, you know, launch, they will take a look at what happened in Gaza, right? In Israel. They will do something like different, like the spy balloon. Nobody expected a spy balloon flew over. So it would be something that we don't expect. And I think it has to do with the internet because the CCP does have, if you compare its combat ability, its internet technology is quite there. I mean, it's quite, and it has been preparing that for many years. So I think it will attack us on the internet. So yeah, so you know we should prepare some. And everyone tries to do, everything is electronic now, um, mm, who knows when that happens. We would wish we still kept the old checkbook. uh, well, that's just my understanding. So I can be totally wrong, but that's my understanding. Jeff Ramos, did Mao try to continue the war against Taiwan Formosa at time in order to accomplish what she is trying to do? Huh? Did Mao try to continue the war against Taiwan in order to accomplish what she is? You mean the other way? Did she try to continue the war in order to accomplish what Mao was trying to do? No. I think if that were your question, I think Xi Jinping wants to take over Taiwan so that he he could be he could have the same status as Mao and Deng, right? He hasn't accomplished anything as the CCP leader. What has he done? He hasn't done anything. So he need to lead something. That's his legacy as far as from his perspective. That's one. Number two, a war will save him from all these internal chaos, right? The CCP is very good at exporting chaos when it can't handle their own chaos. So it wants to bring the whole world down with it in this worldwide chaos so that its problem isn't as bad. And the third reason is, as long as the Taiwan government exists, CCP doesn't have the legitimacy to rule China. Because I talked about this before, because when the Qing dynasty emperor ceded power, the empress and the emperor ceded power to the Republic of China, right? And the Republic of China still exists today. It still exists in Taiwan. So the fact that the CCP has never been able to completely get rid of ROC makes it fear that its legitimacy is in question, right? The ROC still exists in terms of political lineage. It's not broken. The ROC is the legitimate government of China, and it still exists. And CCP, isn't, or it won't be legitimate until it gets rid of the ROC, and that's its view. So I gave you three reasons why he is so obsessed with the quote unquote Taiwan unification. All right. Okay. All right. That seems to be. Is that? I'm gonna pick a question from someone who I haven't answered. Nick Furry. Are top CCP officials allowed retired in other countries? At certain levels, they're not allowed. So, like the very top leaders, like the ones in the Politburo standing committees, I don't think they're allowed. If they want to leave China, they need to get permission. So if you're lower ranking government officials, you are allowed. But if your job was high enough, you're not allowed. Yeah, I know. I have a friend whose father was a general, a high ranking PLA general, and he was not allowed to leave China. He's retired. He's, I don't know, 90 years old, quite old. Could not leave China, or cannot leave China. Yeah. All right. That's all. Okay. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll see you on Thursdays. Please join me on Thursday. That should be quite a fascinating discussion on China's shadow reserves. Right? Okay. All right. Bye-bye. Good night. Bye-bye.